Test, 1, 2, 3.
Welcome everyone to the Electoral Area Services Committee meeting of, it's October 4th, 2023. And I'd like to first start by recognizing that we are on the traditional territories of a number of First Nations, and we have feedback. All right, so we're on the traditional territories of the Kwatsan and the Pakwashan, the Malahat, Zubasset, Dididat, and Pachidat, Halalt, Penelakut, Liaxan, and Saminas nations. And so these people, these territories and these people have been here for thousands of years caring for the land. And I think it's very important to acknowledge it because, in particular, we are tasked with doing a lot of land use, making land use decisions, and we need to think carefully about their teachings and bring that to bear, I think, on how we move forward in our communities today. So with that, I'll turn to the corporate secretary, and he can lead us through our exhaustive agenda, and I have a change.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, your first item on the agenda is the approval of said agenda. And I understand there was an additional grant and aid, Director Abbott, that you wanted to add. And I'm not sure if it was distributed to the directors, Madam Chair. And our apologies at Legis Services if we hadn't. I'm bringing it up in front of us, or in front of me right now, is a $1,000 grant request from the Couch and Missing and Murdered Women, Men, and Children Society.
Okay.
I'm wondering if it's all right if you can add that to your agenda.
Sure.
And we can add that under C6.
C6. Just remind me when we get to it.
Thank you.
And I was hoping that we could add a quick roundtable just to find out where people are at in their communities.
And where would you like that?
We could do that at the end.
All right.
If that's okay.
Sorry, Allison. Just noticed I'm not on the thing there. Remind me, do I have WebEx in? Or?
Oh, Blaze. Alternate Director Salmon. Pardon me.
I will allow me to send you the link. Are you hooked up to email, Director Blaze?
So welcome. We have an alternate director here today. Everyone else, I believe, is here. Yes.
Should I send it to your B-Salmon? Thank you.
Okay, I'll just wait a second until you get online here.
It's on its way.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for indulging.
So could I, with those changes, are there any more changes to the agenda? So with those changes, could I have a motion to approve? And second, and all in favor? Anyone opposed? The motion's carried.
Next item is the adoption of the Electoral Area Services Committee meeting of September 6th, 2023.
Any changes or omissions or corrections or have a motion to approve the minutes and seconded and all in favor? Anyone opposed? The motion's carried.
We're not aware of any business rising from those minutes, so that leads us to the public input period. The public input period is to offer the public an opportunity to comment on an agenda item before the committee considers that item. The public input period procedure policy allows for an allotment of 15 minutes where the speaker is welcome to comment on any items on the agenda up to a maximum of 3 minutes. This excludes items that may, are, or have to be subject to a public hearing, and the speaker should comment in a polite, calm, and courteous manner using respectful language, civility, and decorum.
Do we have anyone from the public who would like to make a comment about the agenda?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and fellow directors. I would like to speak to R4, the accessory dwelling unit proposal put forward by staff. I strongly support the staff's recommendation of sending this information to the local advisory planning committees so that you can have an initial feedback from the community for who members that serve you. I would also like to add that I think it's really necessary that we look at the short-term rental regulations. That's my understanding. I don't think we have any yet. And I think this needs to go hand in hand with this because unfortunately so many people are dealing with extremely high mortgage rates and can make so much more money doing short-term rental than they can providing stable housing for members of our community. So I think there needs to be some guidance from the CVRD on that. And the other thing that I would like to have the CVRD look into is the alternate living arrangements that currently exist outside of the zoning and bylaws of the CVRD. It is a big drain on our community. People are not paying their fair share when it comes to taxes, but also the environmental impact of water and sewer not being disposed of properly. Some people do. They go about putting in sewer systems and that, but a lot don't. And we need to have safe alternate living arrangements for people. RVs long-term with wood stoves and alternate heatings units are not safe for anybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Kaufman. Anyone else?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair.
Welcome.
From Garden Lake. Madam Chair, on today's agenda is part one, Elkington Forest and the Malahat Forest Reserve. And as our director said, wasn't on? As our director said at the January the 4th meeting, we have been giving concession after concession to the Elkington Forest Project or the Malahat Forest Project for years, and the public's getting nothing, and it's time to sort this out. The conversion of these three covenants into one really are three separate problems. We're dealing with a fire hall that we should have built, with a fully equipped fire truck, and with park amenities. And the CVRD still holds a letter of credit for park amenities that they didn't build. I remember the park manager saying, for the ESC, you have a choice here. We can let them build the houses and give the park amenities simultaneously, and we have a letter of credit to back us up. If they don't do it, we'll just build them. that didn't happen, Madam Chair. The CVRD has to start being proactive on our contracts and covenants. Let's deal with one, the fire hall. That could be dealt with separately. The fire truck could be ordered now. You can't get them for a couple of years anyway. And it could be given to the Malahat Fire Department because they are responsible for fighting the fires in that part of Area B. The parkland, just letting them build that on our park on Stebbins Road consists of all sorts of things. One, there isn't a well there. Two, there isn't hydro there. And three, from what I understand, the way the covenant is, the new covenant is written right now, that the parkland up at Elkington will become common area for the people there. That park was planned on being a nice distance from Langford. You could take the trail right from Park Lane into Langford. We've hiked it many times and it can be done. There's a beautiful bridge over Niagara Canyon, a suspension bridge. So I think that we should divide this up into three things, get some action on this, and let's hope we have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Anyone else? All right, moving on.
You have no delegations, so moving on to correspondence. I didn't know if you wanted to look at these all individually or if you wanted an omnibus motion to recommend approval of these grant and aids.
I think we should go through them
Okay.
individually.
For sure. C1 is a grant and aid request to Electoral Area A, Mill Bay, Malahat, with regards to Couch and Missing and Murdered Women, Men, and Children's Society. The recommendation is that a grant and aid, that be recommended to the board that a grant and aid for Electoral Area A, Mill Bay, Malahat, in the amount of $1,000 be provided to the Couch and Missing and Murdered Women, Men, and Children's Society to support the fundraising gala, Lifting Spirits, Honoring Lives.
I have a mover and a seconder. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion's carried.
C2 is another grant and aid, and the recommendation is that it be recommended to the board that a grant and aid Electoral Area C, Cobble Hill, in the amount of $500 be provided to the Couch and Missing and Murdered Women, Men, and Children's Society to support the fundraising gala, Lifting Spirits, Honoring Lives.
I have a mover and a seconder. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion's carried.
C3 is a grant and aid in Electoral Area D, that it be recommended to the board that a grant and aid Electoral Area D, Cowichan Bay, in the amount of $1,700 be provided to the Cowichan Estuary Restoration and Conservation Association to assist in covering the cost of Phase 2 of a postdoctoral study of microplastic accumulation in the Cowichan Estuary.
I have a mover and a seconder. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion's carried.
C4 is a request for grant and aid in Electoral Area D, that it be recommended to the board that a grant and aid Electoral Area D, Cowichan Bay, in the amount of $1,000 be provided to the Cowichan Valley Primary Care Society to support the creation of a nonprofit primary health care service to partners within our community.
A mover and a seconder. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion's carried.
C5 is a grant and aid request within Electoral Area E, that it be recommended to the board that a grant and aid Electoral Area E, Cowichan Station, Satlam, Glenore, in the amount of $1,000 be provided to the Cowichan Estuary Restoration and Conservation Association to assist in covering the cost of Phase 2 of a postdoctoral study on microplastic accumulation in the Cowichan Estuary.
Have a motion, a mover and a seconder. Thank you. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion's carried.
And the addition to the agenda, C6, a grant and aid request in Electoral Area D, that it be recommended to the board that a grant and aid Electoral Area D in the amount of $1,000 be provided to the Cowichan Missing and Murdered Women, Men, and Children's Society to support the fundraising gala, Lifting Spirits, Honoring Lives.
I have a mover and a seconder. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion's carried. There we go. Reports now, I guess.
Moving on to reports. R1 is report from the Development Services Division with regards to application number COV 21B02, a covenant amendment with the Malahat Forest Estates Electoral Area B, Shawnigan Lake. I understand that the applicant is joining us virtually.
Yes. Hi.
Welcome. Ms.
Thank you.
Okay,
So,
I'll just give an overview first.
Sure.
yeah, I was just going to say so.
Okay. You can go to the next slide. So this is a covenant amendment application that we've received for Malahat Forest Estates, formerly known as Elkington Forest, which is shown here on the map in the quite far south end of the CVRD in Area B. And so this is a comprehensive development that underwent a rezoning back around 2010 is when this covenant was entered into. Next slide. So the covenants provided voluntary amenity of some parks dedications, as well as construction of parks amenities, as well as the other covenant, which provided some voluntary construction of fire protection facilities. So it was a single bay apparatus fire hall at the site, as well as a contribution towards the purchase of a fire truck to equip that fire hall. And so this shows an overview of the entire planned development. Right now, under construction, the only portion that's been subdivided so far is over on the far right, the Trailhead Hamlet, which is called number 4. There on the map, and where the number 5 is approximately where the proposed fire hall site had been. If you go to the next slide. And then, so if you could just go back to the last one. This request has come in for the proposed cash in lieu instead of building the fire hall at this site. There's also been a fire service review undertaken for the Malahat Volunteer Fire Department, which confirms it's not appropriate to build a fire hall at this site, rather a new fire hall elsewhere that can service the area in addition to just this area of development. And so the recommendation from staff was to provide cash in lieu of the value of that building at the time, as well as the value of the land where this was to be constructed. Next slide. For the parks covenant, there have been a number of park areas dedicated to the CVRD, but the construction of the Cowichan Valley Trail ended up not in the originally anticipated alignment. As well, there's a Fortis line that also prohibits the development of the staging area and build out of those parks amenities at this development site. And so our Parks and Trails Division has recommended that rather than the applicant's request to provide cash in lieu, that they construct these facilities at the Stebbings Road site, which you can see there on the slide there, up kind of near the top. So it's a few kilometers, there's a P and a question mark there. Thanks, Lauren. And so the recommendation is that these be built at this site instead to service the Cowichan Valley Trail and users of this trail. The next slide. This is just an excerpt from the fire service review that shows potential future fire hall sites and the range of areas that they can service, confirming that an alternative site could provide fire protection service to this site as well. Next slide. So the original report went to Electoral Area Services Committee in June, and it was referred to the Advisory Planning Commission and the Community Parks Advisory Commission for the Area B. And this was reviewed at a joint meeting in July, and the staff recommendations were supported by the commissions. And so there's just been just a slight revision to the wording to either amend or replace to substitute the requirements in the original covenants. So
Thank
able
you.
to answer questions. We also have Don Owens, our
Yes,
representative.
Mr. Owens, would you like to add anything to that description?
Yes, I just want to make everybody fully aware, the reason we made this amendment, application for amendment to the covenant was not at our request. It was at the request of your fire chief, who does not want the fire hall up there. So that started the whole ball rolling about the fire hall. And I've worked with numerous different people, the CVRD, starting with site visits with Frank Linshu, trying to remember who the fire coordinator prior to Rob. And so what we're doing is sort of offering the olive branch. We're not, we'll build that fire hall there starting as fast as I can take out a building permit on the piece of land that's already been provided to the CVRD. So, but we're trying to be good corporate citizens, so to speak, and give the opportunity to fire services in the CVRD to put a fire hall or put the funds towards a fire hall, because it hasn't been determined yet, without being saddled with a fire hall that would eventually just be abandoned, I would assume. So that is the fire hall reason. Everything about the parks is absolutely correct. Again, I was approached by the neighborhood, not the people who actually live at Malahat Forest, because when we had our initial site meeting there, only 2 homes were occupied at that time, almost 3 years ago. So it was the other neighborhood within Goldstream Heights area did not want that park to be there, as well as it was next to an impossibility to build as designed because of the Fortis main line that services the island that runs through there. I don't know if that was not anticipated years ago. I wasn't involved when the original developer started that site and had these covenants registered. The developer is new now, obviously, because the first developer, he went bankrupt. So we're just trying to put it together and give the CVRD latitude and opportunity. And we're good with the park situation. If you so see fit to pass that, yeah, we're more than happy to build it down on Stebbings Road, which was determined by your parks manager to be the best possible location. And so that's no problem. So it's a fire hall situation. Yes, we need fire service up there without a doubt. People pay exorbitant prices and don't have great coverage. Not taxes I'm talking about, but home insurance. Would love to get those down. And we're more than happy to put money in lieu, as long as we come to an agreement on the value. That's going to be a little hard one to determine, but I'm sure we can work that through with staff. One of the major things that the developer has a concern with is where it continually says the value of the land to pay for it again. In other words, he's already turned the land over to the CVRD. Where the fire hall is to go, the fire hall is very tiny. It holds a small fire truck and 1 first responder's pickup truck. And at the rear of the hall is a little tiny, like an oversized powder room with a 30-inch shower and 1 little tiny desk that's probably 30 by 40 inches. That's it. There's no other amenities in there. It's strictly to house a truck and a pickup truck and somewhere to get rinsed. So it's not it's a substation is the better way to call it than a fire hall. And so that piece of land cannot be used to build a home on. It's too small with the setbacks on the corner and everything like that. You'd be lucky to get a 500 square foot house on there. Nobody's going to build a 500 square foot house up there on that corner. So I guess that would be up to the appraiser, as long as we have access to the appraiser, because there's the one thing in here that says, and what does it say here? Staff engage a BC quantity surveyor and professional appraiser to determine the current value of the land where fire protection facilities to be constructed. And then further down, it says all legal and professional costs incurred by the CVRD in relation to the application. No, I'm sorry, the applicant pay all legal and professional costs. And of course, that's a blank check. The developer would like to know how he has input, so it's not a blank check that he's sort of there, like, oh, here's all our legal fees, quantity surveyor fees, appraisal fees, and were quotes ascertained ahead of time, or what the process is. It's just a wide open blank check as far as he's concerned, and would like some kind of response. And go ahead.
Thank you. So does the committee have questions? Director Acton.
Well, I have some questions around this information now. Is this making it too ambiguous? Should this be sent back to staff to have this clearly outlined, this contract that around the piece of land?
Yeah, that's what Mr. Chrisman would like, just to, because it's a little too wide open. Like, will we have access to choice of quantity surveyor and appraiser? Like,
Thank you, Mr. Owens. I'm going to turn to staff and to get a response for that.
okay.
Through the chair to Director Acton, the staff would communicate with the applicants about the quantity surveyor, and but the way that we deal with cost recovery is to provide them the invoice after the work is done. Well, we would of course get estimates before we undertake the work.
Great, that's what we needed to be made aware of so that we feel comfortable. Thank you. I'm
Director
here to
Acton,
answer.
are you okay with that? Would you like to? Any other questions? Director Martman.
Thank you. I'm interested in the topic of sort of the substation, and so that I don't know who would be the one to answer the question, but given that this is a substation, is the one that's intended to be built around Stebbings Road going to be a substation as well?
Would Rob Schooler like to
If
answer
Rob's
that?
available,
Yeah, I think he's here. Oh, yeah, please go ahead, Mr. Schooler.
Good afternoon,
Schuler.
ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the invitation.
We can't hear you. Louder.
I apologize. Is that any better?
Marginally, shout.
I will shout. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
So, through the chair, there appears to be a bit of confusion. There is no substation slated for Stebbings Road. There was one substation to be built somewhere, whether it was in Malahat Forest Estates, Stebbings Road, the CGI site, but there is only one site that it's going to be located at. So, through the chair, Director Martman, I'm not sure what substation you're referring to on Stebbings Road, unless that was one of the options.
Through the chair to Director Martman, if I could just add on to that, I think what some of the confusion may be is that, so what we're recommending is that the value that's in the current covenant, the value of the single bay substation, be estimated, the current value, and put towards the future substation, which would be a bigger station than was originally anticipated in this covenant. So the fire service review showed that what was proposed for that site would not be adequate to service the area. What we're proposing is that they would not be responsible for the entire cost of the new building for the standards of what would be required today, but what was originally anticipated.
think.
Director Martin, would you like to carry on here?
Yeah, if I could, Chair. So I think I heard the word substation again, which is fine. I think Stubbings Road isn't nailed down whether it's going to be a substation or a full fire station. It sort of could be, you're leaving your options open, I think is what I'm hearing. Am I correct?
Mr. Schuler, would you like to answer that?
Sure, thank you. Again, through the chair. Yeah, the fire service review that Michelle was referring to earlier recommended several options available to us. A new main station and closing down the existing station, maintaining the existing station, operating a satellite fire hall up in Malahat Forest Estates or Stebbings Road as a possible alternate solution. And the recommendation that staff have made was to construct a main fire hall, and with the satellite fire halls or substations as we're running to them today.
Director Act? Oh, one more follow-up? Okay.
So I think I have that clarified about what the developer sort of is expected for originally. Was there any expectation of the developer to put into anything beyond the infrastructure and land? I'm speaking to the other parts that go together to make a substation or a fire station, such as personnel, training, equipment for training, that kind of thing.
Mr. Schuler?
Yeah, thank you, through the chair. So the fire infrastructure basically is the piece of land, the satellite fire hall, and a fire engine is what the original covenant stipulates. No training, no periphery equipment, things like that. Land, the fire hall, and a fire truck.
So I just need some clarification before I turn to the other speakers. So my understanding is that what about the land part of it? So it can't be used for, it is of no value to the developer. We're not using it. So is that included in the value of the amenity or not?
Madam Chair, if I could just clarify that this land that was dedicated, this piece of land, is being used by the CVRD for utilities. There's the water reservoir and treatment building there, as well as a lift station.
Oh, okay. I get it. Thank you. I'm going to go to Director Salmon and then back to Director Acton.
Yeah, thank you. Just a question for staff. Just long term, I know it's very remote up there now, but was it looked at? I mean, I believe the province had identified that Goldstream Heights route and extension potentially down the Niagara Main as a possible alternate Malahat routes. I'm just wondering if that was all factored in future planning considerations.
I don't have any information on that. I'm not sure if you do, Rob.
No, I'm not aware of that. No, the only future considerations I'm aware of is the interchange project that MOTI is now considering, Shawnigan Lake Road interchange. We've asked to be on the panel, if you will, as interested parties, but that's the extent of it so far.
Director Acton.
Thank you. So we've seen this a few times, and we've seen it if you were on the board before. This is an exercise of triage and Band-Aids, and everyone is doing their best, including the developer. This is a perfect example for us directors of like what not to do. But now we're trying to fix planning from the past. And we're also trying to make it more livable for the residents that are there now. So we have to move forward on these developments, and like I said, everyone's done their best, and I would like to move the recommendation for the covenants to be changed and removed, and we will hope that these were the right decisions, but in reality, the really bad decisions were made a long time ago. And so this is one of the top 3 examples in Area B that is a nightmare for me that I do not want to leave. And so at this table, we take development really seriously. And these kind of errors come out 10 years later. So I hope that all of us don't leave a legacy like the ones I'm talking about. For today, thanks to staff for trying to put the Band-Aids on there, and the developer for coming forward and working with CVRD, and good luck to everyone with this future development.
Sorry. So we had a mover and we had a seconder. And now we're going to vote on it, recognizing that staff are going to work closely with the developer on evaluating the amenities. And so all in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion's carried.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. Next.
Moving to R2, report from the Development Services Division with regards to application at 2530 Mill Bay Road. There is a recommendation, and I understand that applicant representatives are, I believe, are online.
And so that would be Mr. Benfield? Is that right?
It appears that
He's on the line?
he is joining us virtually.
Or maybe Ms. Sampson?
Hello.
Oh, there he is.
Okay, great. Everyone's here. Carry on. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Chair and Committee. I'm subbing in for Ms. DeBenya, who is unexpectedly away today. So I'll do my best to present her report, and staff are here, of course, to answer any questions. And as you know, the applicant is online. But before you is a minimum lot frontage exemption request for a proposed 2-lot subdivision at 2530 Mill Bay Road. Under Section 512 of the Local Government Act, where a parcel being created by subdivision fronts on a highway, the minimum frontage of that highway must be greater than 10% of the perimeter of the parcel. Both of the proposed lots in this case do not meet that 10% frontage requirement. As such, the applicant is here seeking an exemption. The current subject property is 0.343 hectares in area, and the proposed subdivision would create 2 lots, which would be serviced, or proposed to be serviced by community sewer and community water. Lot A is proposed at 1,675 square meters, and Lot B is proposed at 1,755 square meters. Lot A has a proposed frontage of 15.01 meters, which equates to 7.84% of the parcel perimeter. And Lot B has a proposed frontage of 14.4 meters, or 6.93% of the parcel perimeter. The proposed lots do appear to be sufficient in size to accommodate further residential development. The subdivision is supported by the existing zoning and in line with the OCP land use designation policies. Taken all together, therefore, staff are supportive of the parcel frontage exemptions, and a recommendation for approval is included in your agenda package. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Benfield, do you have anything to add?
No, I don't.
All right. I'll turn to the director, alternate director Salmon.
Thank you. Just 2 questions, really. The first one for staff. So did you say that the rezoning is good now, or it will have to come back for rezoning?
For the subdivision before you, the zoning does support the subdivision. There is, I'm aware that Mr. Benya and the applicant have been having discussions around potential future development that would require a rezoning application, and of course any application requiring a rezoning would come back to this committee as a separate application and be up to the discretion of the board.
Yeah, I'm just picking up on the line in the staff report. A separate rezoning application has been submitted for the subject property, so it is in the works.
It is in the works, but it's not at a point where it's being brought before the committee, nor is it impacting this particular subdivision.
Okay, I still don't quite understand why this will go ahead regardless. So there is a separate rezoning on this same subject property, though, for future?
There would, my understanding is there is a rezoning application that contemplates further subdivision, but as it stands now, that zoning is not in place, and of course would be contemplated through the board. So the frontage request before you is a result of an existing subdivision application that does have the appropriate and necessary zoning to proceed with subdivision of 2 lots.
Okay.
Is one of the things that you're supposed to consider when you're looking at these, what is it called? Yeah, adjustments to the whether it will affect future subdivision?
So the approving officer ultimately is the ministry, the provincial approving officer. So they will look at a whole variety of things, including access to lands beyond. So there could be limitations that occur obviously as you get smaller and smaller parcels with respect to future subdivision potential. Not knowing what that future subdivision looks like, it's hard to comment on sort of theoretical, what that might look like. So I would be limited to answering that without seeing any proposed in front of me, but I don't know if there's any additional comments.
I was just thinking about, I think, Ms. Cheryl, you told us that was something that when you did minimum parcel frontage, one of the criteria you think about is that, am I way off mark here? This is a memory testing for me.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So one of the things that the provincial approving officer would be looking at is they want to ensure that future subdivision will be possible as a result of a subdivision occurring or a frontage waiver occurring. So they want to make sure that it is possible to subdivide later if the zoning does permit it.
So that's what we're supposed to think about?
Yeah.
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 And there's no issue on this one?
The staff
Well, under the current zoning, no further subdivision of these lots could occur.
Okay, so we're not even thinking about that.
Right,
So
we're
if-
just looking
If they
at
come
this
forward, then we
layout.
would think about it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Staff regret making this complicated. Just focus on the application that is before you. Thank you.
Yes, Alternate Director Salmon.
Okay, thank you. For staff, I'm just a little uncomfortable knowing we have a rezoning application in to go ahead on this without knowing what that is. But how about this for a question? So I went by this morning, just had a look, I had no objection to it as it stands. Looks like there's adequate room. Maybe more generally, so there's panhandles on each side of this 2-lot proposal. Do we have guidelines roughly about how many driveways, like in the OCP? Is it possible we would have even more in this particular? I don't know if I'm specific enough, but.
No, through the chair, I think I understand the director's question there. No, to my knowledge, there's no existing guidelines that exist with respect to the amount of driveways. Of course, the approving officer and the provincial ministry does take that into consideration as they're contemplating subdivisions. But in terms of CVRD regulations with respect to the number of access points and the distance between them, there is none officially in policy that we look at.
All right, what would you like to do, Director?
I'm a little bit uncomfortable. I don't quite follow the logic. Why do we look at this knowing there's a rezoning in without knowing anything more about the rezoning? That seems, so we're saying that, don't worry, ministry will consider that rezoning?
If I may, Chair, through you to the director. No, I don't think what we're saying then, and I apologize for the confusion as well. So essentially, if I could pull it back a little bit, the zoning exists right now with community sewer and water to support a 2-lot subdivision. And that is the lens in which the application has been reviewed and the subdivision will be reviewed, and the request has been presented to the committee. So staff's recommendation at this point is that with respect to the access points, the amount of frontage, and the parcels, that it is a supportable application with respect to the exemption. The applicant has submitted a zoning application to seek further subdivision potential, and if that gets to the point of maturity, it would be presented to this committee and considered by the board, which would be a fully discretionary approval by the board. With that report would be a referral to the Ministry of Transportation and take into considerations, you know, the access points, the amount of area for four lots on that same area, if it was to come to fruition and presented to this committee. As it stands now, that zoning is not in place. Yes, we've received an application, but those 4 lots are not being contemplated at this time. 2 lots are being contemplated through this exemption request and this subdivision application that staff and the ministry have received.
Thank you. So this is pretty straightforward. Director Acton, do you have anything new to add?
No, I was going to say just that. It's really straightforward, and the request from staff is just to look at this one part of it, and we approve these all the time. So I think
Okay, Director.
I'm very comfortable with voting in favor.
Director Wilson, would you like to add anything new?
I don't know whether
Or
this is
make
new.
the motion, or-
I don't know whether this is new or not, Madam Chair, but thank you very much. I would love to have a crystal ball, and I fully understand the alternate director's concerns here. But right now, as Ms. Geroff has said, we consider what's in front of us. At the moment, we don't know what's going to happen in the future, so I would move this one. Unless you want to.
Do I have a seconder? I have a seconder. Any more discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Moving to R3, which is a report from the Development Services with regards to an application at 7150 Cowichan Lake Road. I understand that a representative might be online as well.
Mr. McLeod, are you there? Thank you, Mr. Benfield, for coming. And I don't see Mr. McLeod, but maybe he's here.
No, I see,
You
no
see him?
longer see him.
You don't see him. Okay, well, Ms. Boyle, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So presented before you is application number RZ20B02, a rezoning application for 7150 Cowichan Lake Road. The property fronts Cowichan Lake Road to the northeast and backs onto the Cowichan Valley Trail. The majority of the property is forested with a manufactured home and driveway, and the dwelling is currently serviced with a private well and septic system. Next slide, please. Despite being privately owned, the property is split zoned R3 and P1 as a result of a previous zoning and official settlement plan amendment application in the late 1980s. However, the amending bylaws, after they were passed, the subdivision never came to fruition. With the current harmonized official community plan, the local area plan designation was reverted back to the original density, but the split zoning remained. The applicant is now proposing a zoning amendment to revert the entire parcel back to the R2 zone to match the harmonized official community plan. Next slide, please. Development Services staff consider the proposed zoning amendment to meet the intention of the OCP, and thus recommend that a zoning amendment bylaw be drafted for the CVRD board to consider for first and second reading, and that the public hearing for this application be waived.
Thank you. So Mr. McLeod's not here. Any questions for Ms. Boyle? Director Morrison.
Move the staff recommendation.
Seconder? Anyone have any discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you.
Moving to R4, report from the Community Planning Division with regards to secondary dwelling regulations in electoral areas D, E, F, G, H, and I.
Welcome, Ms. Wright.
Thank you very much. I am here on behalf of Mr. Mike Tippett, who was the author of the report, but is not here today. I will make this short and sweet. So if we can go to the next slide, please. So this is, as we said, a report to present the consideration of going to the APCs to discuss secondary dwelling regulations in electoral areas D, E, F, G, H, and I. So as a recap for recently, in April and September of this past year, amendment bylaws for both Area B as well as areas A and C were passed that reduced the minimum parcel size requirement for second dwellings within community water service areas, as well as for unserviced parcels. So now both of those bylaws, and I'm really simplifying it, so both of those bylaws state that parcels are to be at least 0.2 hectares in size if both the principal dwelling and the accessory dwelling unit or the suite are serviced by community water system, or the parcel is at least 0.5 hectares in size if neither are connected to the community water system, and in both cases, that a report by a registered on-site wastewater practitioner or a professional engineer with experience in water systems approves the appropriate level of sewage treatment that would permit the requested density. Next slide, please. So I'm not going to go into what the current zoning bylaws say, but this is, once again, a simplified version of what the zoning bylaws say right now. But it basically summarizes the current suite and accessory dwelling unit regulations in zoning bylaws D through I. So also, I wanted to point out just a small error in the report where it talks about 1 hour fire separation in between suites and the single-family dwelling. So that's not quite accurate. So if there's a suite within a single-family dwelling, the suite does not need a 1 hour fire separation. It needs either a 15, 30, or 45-minute separation, but that depends on the configuration of the smoke detector. So that would be determined at the time of building permit with the building inspector. So the 1 hour fire separation is not quite accurate in the case of a suite in the single-family dwelling. So finally, the recommendation to the board is that a report outlining potential zoning bylaw amendments for secondary dwellings be referred to the advisory planning commissions for electoral areas D, E, F, G, H, and I. And I do want to say that each of those reports would be tailored to the electoral area of the APC, and that a staff member will be present to guide the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Director Abbott.
Thank you, Chair. It's still secondary dwelling or, sorry, a secondary, an auxiliary unit or a secondary, it's not both?
That is the case for now, yes, but that could be brought up in terms of the conversation at the APC.
Director Martman, did you have a question?
Thank you for the report, and I see there's quite a variety between the different areas over the years, and I suspect there's lots of thoughts and arguments made for it in the past. I am interested in terminology though, because I never get this right. So secondary suites are inside an existing dwelling, is that correct? And I haven't.
You would need to look in each and every bylaw. However, in terms of the building code, yeah. Yes, a secondary suite is a unit within a single-family dwelling.
And a attached?
An accessory dwelling unit would be a separate detached building. And in one area we also have, or maybe it's more than one, small suite. So we've just confused it even more. And I can't remember if small suite is, I believe small suite is detached. I could be wrong though.
Thanks. I think I'd love to have a definition that is consistent, but I think that's what the modernization and harmonization is all about. The other piece to this is there any appetite to add any additional types of dwellings or accessory dwellings or to this, or are we staying within our box?
I'm just kind of wondering what you mean by additional. Do you mean more?
Tiny homes, things, or those that all fall under ADU?
Yes, so we don't limit we do limit the maximum size of a suite. However, a tiny home is different. It would need to meet building code regulations though. So we aren't saying how small a suite or an accessory dwelling unit can be, but we are saying currently how big one can be.
Director McClinton.
Let's see if I can make it more confusing. Through the chair, I do want to say thank you for bringing this forward and helping me move a little closer to one of my campaign promises. I know the folks in Area G, many have spoken with me. You know, they want to be able to age in place and take care. You know, our younger folks want help with their mortgages, things like that. So being able to take this to the APC, I'm glad they're going to have some input on that. Just kind of going through some of the terminology, I'm going to ask a general question. I don't know, it's maybe a little unfair, but in general, we're looking at most areas, if you have a half an acre and you have access to water and good septic or sewer, that's sort of in general where we're putting an accessory dwelling, right? And accessory dwellings are roughly 90 meters. Is that square meters? That's the rough size?
That's correct for now. It could be brought up at the APC, additional sizes. I do want to point out, though, areas B and A and C did leave that their maximum suite area the same. I believe both of those bylaws say 85 square meters, which is just another another number we add on there. In terms of, though, you know, forward thinking, and as Director Martman kind of insinuated, is during, you know, these conversations could be brought into more the modernization of the zoning bylaw as well. And this is talking about, well, if we're having one zoning bylaw for an area, for the entire CVRD eventually, we do hopefully want all electoral areas to have, you know, the same suite, you know, suite size or accessory dwelling unit size, or to have, you know, at least not 7 different numbers bouncing around out there. So this, we're hoping that these APC conversations will be broader picture to inform both now, but also later in part of how big suites should be within the electoral areas.
Yeah. And has there been any, if I can ask another question?
Please.
Thank you. Has there been any consideration given to like very large lots? I know there's a family I'm thinking about, they have an 11-acre lot and they're currently not permitted to have I gotta look every time, accessory dwelling on their property. You know, would there be any special consideration given to those exceptionally large lots that don't want to subdivide?
I think that's kind of where, you know, development would push you to subdivide. If depending, it depends. Are you in the ALR? Farmland depends on the zone and all of those things. However, if you are sitting on an exceptionally large lot and this is what the zoning bylaw permits you, you know, if you subdivided or rezoned in some cases regarding, you would be able to do more. But I don't think we're really having the conversation of yet, but it could change at the APC tables, we don't know, of permitting more than one accessory or suite per lot yet. However, some local governments are going in that direction. We are, though, a regional district, and we're rural, and the regional districts are meant to be rural and not urban, and I think it's more the urban areas that are allowing more than, you know, one suite or accessory dwelling unit per parcel. It also depends on the water and septic or sewer of that area as well, right? It's easy, I find that when I'm talking to the public about these things, it's very easy for people to forget the limitations, and that is, you know, I call it the pipes in the ground, limitations of each parcel in each area when you're talking about affordability and what people need now versus what's actually sustainable for the future. So we don't want to be permitting something that we can have now, but maybe in several years, decades from now, we're not able to service it in the same level.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, and I'm just curious, I think this is going to be there's going to be a lot of interest in Area G. I think there's a lot of pent-up interest, having not been able to build those accessory dwellings. What's a good way for those appropriate questions to get filtered through that maybe should get answered at the APC? Or is that even appropriate?
Well, generally we ask, you know, people, the APC members will come, or members of the public could approach you as director, and you could bring it forward as well to, well, it would be Mr. Tippett bringing along, but I'm sure I'll be participating just a little. And we are able, sometimes in the reports, we've embedded questions into reports that we think are APC reports that we think should be contemplated, but they're not an exact agenda package for the APC. So a director could ask for questions at the beginning, or not a director, a chair of the APC could ask for questions at the beginning from members. You as director are permitted to, of course, or any director is permitted to attend their APC and kind of bring questions forward. But really, in these cases, although each electoral area is different, we do kind of want a similar conversation to happen at them so we can get similar information. And one of those would be, you know, suite size or accessory dwelling unit plus suite, even though, you know, I just spoke about the servicing issues, things like that.
Director Martman.
Thank you. Just looking crystal ball, maybe Director Wilson would comment on that, my crystal ball. But crystal ball, one of the things that was recently announced was the secondary suite incentive program. And that is up to a $40,000 grant. And I'm wondering about timing, though it's not announced for electoral areas, is for municipalities. They may widen it, I don't know. But the timing of this, if it goes through the APC, comes back to us, this program launches in the spring. Is it something that would potentially dovetail in the my Ben Martman's crystal ball of the future?
To answer that question, though, we're in the perfect position for that. So we're in the perfect position to, you know, test it out. And I know areas B, C, and A, or A and C, if we put it in the way the zoning bylaws are written, you know, didn't really contemplate enlarging the permitted the minimum parcel or the minimum size of a suite. However, with the modernized zoning bylaw, that's the perfect time. So we can say now, hey, we're not going to change them, or, you know, change them too much, or maybe we all bring them up to one size. And then at the modernization of the zoning bylaws, that's when we say, oh, maybe that didn't work in that quite way, and this is the perfect time to change it for all of them. So we are in a great spot to come out with the first round and then reassess in the next year or so to see what's working and what's not.
Okay, so it's moved and seconded? Yeah, I see that. And someone seconded it? Oh, you'd like to ask a question?
To piggyback on what Director McClinton had said, I'd really like to have some clarity as to process here. I think this is a really important referral that we're making to our APCs, and I'd like to know, you know, with some certainty about process, and I don't know whether we have to go to Ms. Sherolf about this, but the notion that our communities may want to have some input to this. We have observing at our APC meetings, but not participation. And so is the process for providing input to this process through staff in advance of the meeting? And just another point that I think is important, I'm looking forward to this report coming to us as advice from our APCs. And while I generally don't attend my APC meetings because we're only there as a resource, I want to ensure that the reports that we're getting from our APCs are a reflection of the APC's advice to us and not political ideology that may come from either community or the director. So can I get some certainty or clarity from staff that we know how this is going to be handled and that we can be certain that we're going to have some consistency in the reports that are coming back?
Madam Chair, through you to Director Morrison. I think we're hoping to continue the process that was initiated with areas A, B, and C by removing some of the barriers that exist currently in the zoning bylaws that prohibit the development of secondary suites in those areas. And so it wasn't intended originally to be a whole-scale modernization of secondary dwelling regulations, but to kind of take a soft approach and look at what's there now and how that could be tweaked. And so that's happened in areas A, B, and C. But that doesn't mean that there might not be further changes to the regulations for areas A, B, and C through the harmonization process. So we want to go through that exercise for the remaining electoral areas that haven't had the benefit to do that yet. Having said that, the APCs, we don't know what input we're going to receive when we go to APCs, right? And so it's an opportunity to have a dialogue with that representative section of your communities, and to report that information back to you. And then when we report that back to you, that'll be the opportunity to assess whether or not, you know, we could be directed as staff to make some minor amendments to the zoning bylaws, or whether we really need to move into a more fulsome public engagement process with the public more broadly. I would say, let's see how it goes.
So before you go, a
Director
follow-up.
Morrison.
And I think it's important that it be a fairly consistent process. So to the specific question of, like, it's clear it's going to be out there for community members are going to know about this. So I know that generally in the past, if the staff receive correspondence, they may include that as part of the package that may be the report that they get, that the APC members get. So I just want to make sure that we're all clear and that the public are all clear that submission of comments on this topic come to staff and are presented at the APC as you know, sort of late submissions. Is that what we can expect, or if that what we can encourage community members to do if they want to weigh in on the subject?
Madam Chair, so through you to the directors, so if community members want to weigh in on the subject, they should be encouraged to direct their comments to their elected officials. They're of course welcome to submit their comments to the CVRD, but as you noted, we do want to try to be consistent in the approach that we take with the APCs, to provide them with the same sort of types of information and to have a similar type of conversation with each of the commissions so that it's consistent. That's the goal. Yeah, and I should add as a caveat, we don't know what the provincial government is going to direct us to do, if anything. It might be just direction to municipalities, but it might be direction to regional districts as well to look at mandating certain types of development within electoral areas. So we might hear that before we have the opportunity to go out to ABCs, and we'll adjust accordingly. Thanks.
Thank you. I have Director Wilson, and then alternate Director Salmon, and then Director Abbott.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. And just to put the other directors' minds at rest here, the process that we've gone through with areas A, B, and C, and it was B that brought it forward, and I'm glad they did, because areas A and C are now included. The process that we've been through so far in getting this at least on the move has been very, very open, very fair. I do actually attend all the APC and Parks meetings, and as an observer, but from what I've seen so far, the reporting back has been exactly as what's happened. Now, one of the things that is coming up on the 13th and 14th of this month are the local area planning workshops to be held at the Community Health, Shawnigan Community Centre. I have told my area Planning Commission Chair and Parks Commission Chair that these are going on, and asked them to invite the APC members and Parks Commission members to those workshops so they can bring up exactly the same kind of concerns that may be brought up here. But from what I've seen so far, the process, let's get it in place, let's get it moving in advance of any provincial stuff which will come down, then this is a good chance to do it. And I think the staff have done a great job as far as we're concerned in A, B, and C so far. So just to put your minds at rest a little bit here.
Alternate Director Salmon.
Yes, thank you. So a broad question, but is it possible that the whole short-term rental issue is going to factor into this report, or could it, or just any general comments would be appreciated?
Ms. Sheriff would like to weigh in.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So staff are working on a report to bring to the ASC on the topic of short-term rentals. It's a big subject, and we can't talk about that and not talk about hotels. So it's a big issue. Obviously, it can come up in conversation with APCs, but it wouldn't be the focus of the referral to the APCs at this time.
Director Abbott.
Thank you, Chair. Don't go too far, Ms. Charoff. I think Director Wilson may have mentioned it, and Director Morrison, but the material that the APC members get, will it be fulsome and delivered well in advance for them to digest? You've been through this for A, B, and C. I don't want it to be an evening event where Mike or Lauren deliver a message, staff deliver a message, and they're trying to absorb all that information in an evening.
Sure. So APCs, and I'm not quite sure how far in advance they get their package, but we do stick to the same rules for each APC. But whatever's in the report, we really try not to to divert too far off of what we've written there. However, the APC meeting is also run by the chair. It's not run by staff. With the staff, you know, we really do try to sit back and listen to the conversation, and we present the information that we have to present in the report. We're there for questions, and sometimes to kind of clarify, maybe an APC might be going off on a different subject, but really we hope that the report is the same as these meetings here, is the information that's used to make inform the recommendations.
Thank you.
Anyone else? I just have a comment when you go to the APCs, if you do, if we pass this recommendation. I found it would be really helpful to have a table with A, B, and C, all the things, because one of our goals is to try and harmonize as much as possible, and we hope we've got it right in A, B, and C, so that should be good guiding information. But when I was reading it, I had a little bit of hard time looking at the full picture because it wasn't on a table for me. Thank you. So the motion's on the floor, right?
It has not been moved
Nope.
or seconded yet.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. And so any more discussion? All right, call question. All in favor? Anyone opposed? The motion's carried. Thank you, Ms. Wright. And we are going to take a break now. So no. Mm-hmm. We're live again. All right, welcome back. Moving on to R5, I believe.
Which is a report from the Strategic Initiatives Division with regards to local area plans and Function 325 budget.
Good afternoon.
Ms. Green, you're here. Yeah, yes, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I don't have a presentation today. It's a short staff report. It provides an update on the local area plan engagement process. And it's also requesting amendments to Function 325 budget that result in no net change. The information that's provided in this report identifies the local area plan meeting dates. It also outlines the workshop agendas that will be taking place starting at Shawnigan Lake Community Center October 13th and 14th. All of the information that's provided in the report is available for the public on planyourcowichan.ca. Also to advise the directors that we were successful in the Complete Communities assessment grant, which was official on September 22nd for phase 1 and 2 of the assessments, which allows us to do some quite in-depth analysis to support greater understanding of housing, daily needs, infrastructure, and transportation within each of the local area plan process. And we will be coming back to you early in December for a review and a recommendation to approve a second complete community grants for the phase 3 implementation process. The print ad and the social media campaign began this week. We had a full page ad in the Citizen, and we're in some of the smaller papers as well. And we did start the social media for areas A, B, and C on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And they've been well received so far. We've had a lot of positive comments on them, particularly with respect to the personalized videos from the directors. The request in terms of the amendment to function 325 is to decrease the strategic initiatives development permits by 10,000, legal by 15,000, and the community planning consultants by 6,000 for a total of 31,000, and increase the strategic initiatives public engagement by 31,000. So no net change. That will allow us to support an even expanded community outreach to ensure we can reach as many people as possible to come out to the meetings. So that's the report from Strategic Initiatives for today, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Breen. We had a workshop this morning, and for those who weren't here, we really learned how important communications, and I really appreciate the social media aspect of your communications. I think it's been what has made the program so successful so far. So any questions for Ms. Breen? Director Deck.
Thank you, Chair. Is the decrease in those 3 initiatives as a result of them being completed, or is this a financial sacrifice you're making?
Thank you through the chair to Director Deck. So the development permit budget for 10,000 that was allocated to strategic initiatives this year has not been used. What happened was, as you'll recall, fairly recently, we had a public hearing on bylaw 4424 that Ali Garnett advanced on several amendments to all of the DPAs. So that was done in-house. And so those funds were not used for that reason. The legal budget has been reduced because there's been a significant amount of GIS work that's been delayed and hasn't needed the legal review this year. It will be needed in 2024, just because of some changes in staffing there and some delay in time schedules. And from the community planning consultants, that money was not fully used. So that money is sitting there, that $6,000. So that allows us to decrease and then expand for public engagement. Thank you for the question.
Oh, thank you, Corley. Ms.
Anyone else? Any more questions? Yep, Director McClinton.
Through the chair, thank you. Yeah, I see you have noted Electoral Area G is going to be having their event on November 4th at 11. I'm just doing a shameless pop plug. I may clip this and put it to my Facebook. But could you just briefly, in your own words, just outline what the public can expect during those workshops? Those I know it's a little outside what we're supposed to be talking about here, but I think that would be a big help.
Through the chair to Director, sure, happy to do that. This is step 1, so you'll see on page 2 of the staff report, but for the directors and anyone that's listening, step 1 is future visioning. And so in what the public will find, these is 2 workshops that are available on each day, and for A, B, and C, there'll be 4 that'll be available on the 13th and 14th, but basically 2 that are exactly the same. And folks can attend both if they want, or one or the other. There'll be a short presentation on what's involved on the future visioning. And then there'll be a facilitated workshop, and there'll be 3 segments. The first segment will be presenting a draft vision, which is a compilation of various different submissions that we've received from the communities throughout the prior engagements, or in the case of some of the electoral areas that have completed charrettes, we will be presenting those as well. We'll be asking for the community to generate some ideas on what they like about that and what changes, if any, they would like to see. So it's going to be an affirmation process. That's first step of step 1. Then there'll be a local area description that will be presented. Many of those have been crafted from previous OCPs and also input that's been received from the community as they've been involved in setting the stage processes, which are the previous ideas fairs. And the final part of that, and here's where we start to bring in the complete community assessment, is we'll be starting to look at 4 areas: housing, transportation, daily needs, and infrastructure. We'll be asking them about what works currently in their communities and what they'd like to see in the future. And then we're going to be doing some gap analysis over the next 6 months. And we'll be looking at various scenarios, and we'll be coming back to them with scenarios and having getting inputs on that. So those 3 areas in the future visioning, the vision, the description, and the elements of looking forward in terms of actually drafting a concept plan, are the exact same 3 elements that they will find on an online survey. So if they don't have the opportunity to come to the meeting, or they come to the meeting and they have more to say, they'll have a second opportunity to provide that in writing. And they'll also have another opportunity at the meeting. We'll have big boards up where they can put up stickies and they can provide information that way. So this is step 1 of 3 steps.
Thank you. Any more questions, comments? Do I have someone like to move it?
I'll move the
Be moved and
recommendation.
seconded. Any more discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion's carried.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving to R6 is a report from the General Manager, Land Use Services Department with regards to Function 325 and a budget amendment request.
Welcome. Mm-hmm. It's lovely.
So staff are requesting consideration for a budget amendment to allow replacement of the printer that does serve a number of different CVRD divisions and is integral to our business needs. Apologies for my candor.
Director Atkin.
Why would this even have to come to the board? Like, we never really have equipment questions, permission come up before.
Madam Chair, through you to Director Acton, that's a great question. So we do need to do a budget amendment. Finance is preparing a report. We'll be bringing forward an amended bylaw package to the board later this month, I believe. So the funding for the printer has to come from capital, and there was no capital budgeted for this purpose in the 325 budget this year. So the budget amendment would do that, make it legal. Otherwise, we get flagged by the auditors.
Thank you. Would anyone like to move this motion? And seconded. Any more discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion's carried.
Moving
And
to
we're up to the last one, I think.
R7, report from the General Manager, Land Use Services Department, regards to public hearings. She has evidence as well, I see, in a piece of paper in her hand. No? Oh.
Madam Chair.
Please.
So staff came to EASC earlier this year with a proposed standing resolution with respecting public hearings. Subsequent to that, the board directed that a workshop be held with directors. That workshop was held back in June, I believe. And so staff were able to walk through the sort of mechanics of public hearings with directors, explaining what happens in advance, during, and after a public hearing. We talked about the format. And are coming back to you now after that workshop, and with a slightly modified proposition here, and that is that public hearings be held, continue to be held in the CVRD boardroom, where possible in a hybrid format, so allowing both in-person and electronic attendance, and then with a caveat that the board can make alternative arrangements for a public hearing. So if for some reason you believe that a particular public hearing would warrant having that hearing in a different location or a larger facility, then you could direct that the hearing be held that way. And the other parts of the recommendation are that the hearings be delegated to all electoral area directors, so that we can get away from these one-off resolutions that hearings be directed to just 3 electoral area directors. So only one really needs to be there, but all should be invited to attend, and that the hearings be chaired by the chair of the ESC or their designate, and that the hearing record be certified by the public hearing chairperson and the recording secretary. And the last one is important because that would limit the number of signatures, and it also would expedite the processing of the report and bringing that forward to the board, so we're not chasing down directors for signatures. So there are 2 other options in the report. Those are in-person only public hearings, and then continuing with electronic only public hearings. So we're presenting the middle version, the hybrid, and I'm here for questions.
Director Atkin has a question.
Yeah, I support this. Oops, is it me? It's good? I support this suggestion. Makes sense. The only thing I was wondering, was time discussed? Like what time these public hearings would be held at, and the convenience of, since now it would just be this one location generally?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Director Acton, I believe that over the past couple of years, our hearings have typically started around 5 p.m. And that's worked fairly well, particularly for staff, because it gives staff the opportunity to have a little bit of a break at the end of the workday before coming into the public hearing session, and gives time for the boardroom to be set up. Certainly that time is up for discussion. It could be an alternate time, could be earlier during the day. There are local governments that hold their public hearings during their board or council meetings. So it is certainly completely up for discussion.
Is there a suggestion then? Is 5 the suggestion?
The suggestion would be to continue with what has been working. That seems to be working well.
Okay.
Any more questions? Would anyone like to move the recommendations? It's moved, seconded. Any more discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you.
Madam Chair, we're moving right into question period. Just as a gentle reminder, the question period is an opportunity to offer the public to ask a question regarding the business of the CVRD. The question period allows for an allotment of 15 minutes and is comprised of 2 parts. The first is reserved for questions directly related to agenda items. If there is time remaining, questions may be on a matter of public interest related to and in the CVRD jurisdiction. Each questioner is permitted to ask 1 question plus 1 follow-up question related to the answer. The question must truly be a question and not a statement of opinion or speech, and questioners must avoid personal references, insinuations, violent, offensive, or disrespectful remarks about another person, and unparliamentary language. So we open up
Do you have
for
any questions? Welcome, Ms. Kaufman.
Thank you. My name's Susan Kaufman, and I'm from Salem. Forgot that at public input. Sorry. My question is could staff give a brief reminder to the directors of the purpose of the APC? Because having been on the Area E APC for many years and chair, we do have set parameters on what we can discuss at the meeting, and then we've also found it very helpful when staff provide questions to the APC for things that they may like. And just a reminder that the APCs are selected based on being a representation of our communities, but not the only one. We just provide our inputs. So I think it would be very beneficial if staff could give that reminder.
Thank you. I will ask them.
Thank you. And my next question is, we've dealt with this a long time ago, but it surrounds the introductions to the policy of public input and question period. And the one I have the most problem with is the preamble for the question period. Does the board assume that the people are going to be rude or make insinuations? I hope not, because I know I do my best, and I think most people do, not to be rude or condescending. I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me right now. And I know this was addressed previously, and it seems to have crept back in again. And, you know, we're not members of the parliament, so non-parliamentary comments may not mean what it does to you, to the members of the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kaufman. I share your thoughts on that topic. But that said, I also know it's increasingly challenging to conduct public meetings, and quite often it's really important to set the ground rules out at the beginning. Now, that said, I know that you and Mr. Evans are the only people in the gallery, and it really probably, we don't need to say things like that for you, for your ears. But yeah, I guess it just becomes sort of a habit to do that, so that we don't forget to do it when we do have a larger crowd who may not be as, who may need reminding.
Thank you. I can certainly appreciate that. It would be a good idea then to carry this message forward to other public meetings that the CVRD has, because I know I have been, and many of you have been in public meetings, such as the planning meetings, where some people can get very vocal and rude. Thank you.
I agree. Thank you. Hello, Mr. Evans.
Madam Chair, I'm Cliff Evans from Shawnigan Lake. Madam Chair, on R1.
Do you want to turn the microphone?
Microphone, Mike, Cliff.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Now I can hear you.
I have to start all over.
R1.
Madam Chair, I'm Cliff Evans from Shawnigan Lake. I'd like to speak or ask a question on R1. When the Malahat force, when the new covenants are being drawn up, can we please get the specifications of the original covenants in here? Because when the applicant was talking this afternoon, he wasn't talking about a fire truck, he was talking about a pickup truck, first responder. So I think that the specifications for the amenities were written in the original covenants, and I think we should have them. Don't you?
I think I trust staff to go and do their job to negotiate the right amount of valuation and whatever it is that we need to figure out based on the existing covenants. And I'm sure they will do that.
Were the staff not responsible for backing up our covenants to have our amenities built simultaneously with the constructions of houses? Did the staff back that up?
Got to call point of order on this one.
Yeah, Mr. Evans, I think we'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I noticed in the R1, staff recommended that there was no public meeting required, or recommended that no public meeting was required. Do you not think that the public should have a say in the change of the location of a fire hall, the buying of a truck, and the change of location of a public park?
Mr. Evans, this application or this report went to the APCs. We had community input on it, and it's also probably more importantly being driven by what the real fire service review is telling us, and I think that that's a very important and technical exercise, that I rely on the professionals for that kind of advice, more than I probably would focus on the community at that point.
Madam Chair, I read through R1 today, and it stated that the APC only commented on the firefighting facility. Is that right?
I would have to look at the report again, but I believe the Parks Commission looked at the other, did it not? Yeah.
So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. All right, I really want my round table.
You have a bit of an oval one, but will that do?
I'll live with that. So I thought it was, like, I find it really helpful to get a feel for people's different electoral areas and what's going on. And I really wanted to share something that's special that's happening in my electoral area. No, we're having a roundtable. It was part of the agenda. I know we're doing it a little bit out of order, but there we go. Yeah, we're still recording. So there's something special going on in my area that I wanted to share, but I thought it would be really helpful to find out what was going on in other people's areas that might be of interest to the community. And I'm talking like really brief, short little snippets. Would anyone like to start? Director Deck.
I went to a dance on Saturday night put on by community volunteers, and it got me thinking about how important our volunteers in our neighborhood are. And when I started making a list, I just thought, oh, I won't be able to stop, because we have volunteer fire department, we have the YCA, we have individuals who step up and get rid of invasive species. There's Cowichan Lake and River Stewardship Society. So I just wanted to give a big shout out to the people in Yubo, Mead Creek, Marble Bay, Woodland Shores, for the wonderful job they're doing of making communities, neighborhoods, and individual people's lives much, much better.
Thank you, and we know you're a dancer, so that's great. That's perfect. Director Martman.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of things to share. Tomorrow night at the North Roysa Community Center will be a town hall for the community to come and share their concerns and listen to their director talk about an update. As well as we have Yellow Point Park is being, there will be a survey set up later in the month at the park to determine what the community wants for that in the future as the lease is coming up. And the third thing's happening is our local area plan for those listening on November 5th at 11 o'clock, and at 12:30 will be the workshops. So look forward to people coming out to all of those three things.
Great, thank you. Lots happening. Director Acton, would you like to go next? Okay. I'll come back to you.
I was going to go opposite.
Okay.
So like,
Director Wilson, I know, has something.
I've actually got a couple of of things here. First of all, one of the things that we've been working on, and I say we, which is Mayor Douglas and myself, is with this community health initiative which is coming forward, which really is quite important and was brought up at UBCM by in public and in private by the province. They're looking towards this model as well. So we're hopeful that we can get this really moving. I've got meetings with, we've had meetings with Sonny First now, we've had meetings with Alistair McGregor, and we're getting going, but we need money, and that's the biggest problem. So that's one big thing that we're working on. The other thing is the LAPs, which are coming up. They were going to be really good, and congratulations to Miss Breen, who is pretty good at directing people who are not used to sitting in front of a camera. So good for her. She's done a good job there. That's about it from my end. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Alternate.
So, thank you, Madam Chair. I like this new format. In Area A, well, we had the Tour de Rock, the Cops for Cancer, through this morning. Good turnout at Thrifty's. I know they were in Area B last night on Check TV at the Shawnigan School, and a great community event. Just to add to, so the workshops for the local area plan for A, B, and C are Friday and Saturday coming up. So, thank you. Oh, it's next week. Okay. Good, thank you, Mike. 13th and 14th.
Thank you, Chair, for this opportunity. I thought I was going to be talking about issues, and one of the issues that's brewing in Cowichan Bay is the proposed removal of the dike, the Dinsdale Dike. And we've heard a lot about information, misinformation. This morning's session on communication was most telling. And to help learn more about it, I'm meeting with Mayor Rob Douglas and Tom Reed of Nature Trust on Friday at 10 to learn more and become more informed. I believe it's happening. It's happening for all the right reasons as we address global temperature increase and sea level rise. Fish and the migration of fish and the health of the Cowichan and the Coxsala rivers and the estuary are paramount, and protecting and enhancing eelgrass is critical. So I'm on a learning curve, and this meeting isn't just limited to Mayor Douglas and myself. I believe we're trying to get representation from E, and a few other people are coming out to it. Like others, I tip my hat to the planning staff, Miss Breen and Miss Garnett, for what they've done to get us ready. And areas D and E have an interesting business section. Eagle Heights and Coxsala Village will be doing their open house visioning session on October 25th, and then followed the next evening, October 26th, at Cowichan Hotel will be just Area D. So thank you. And as a relative newcomer with about a year under my belt, I've learned that so much of what we want to do in our areas is confounded and assisted by the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure. Goals and aspirations can be stopped in their tracks by a rather monolithic department that seems to weigh heavily on all of our dealings. And I wished that I could have seen Cabinet Minister Rod Fleming, but I gather Minister Fleming is good friends with our chair, and I'm hoping that increasingly we can have the Ministry of Highways visit the regional, the entire region, and say, how can we get things done? How can we remove roadblocks? And it just seems to be an impermeable force. So more on, this is a wonderful suggestion, Director Nicholson, and I look forward to being, like Director Acton, better prepared for the next one.
Thank you. Director McGlinton.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, great format. Happy to sort of touch on a few things. Yeah, lots of important issues being discussed in Area G, specifically Saltaire, but also on Thetis Island. We just had our first community conversation meeting about 10 days ago, and I do want to publicly thank Mayor Douglas again for coming out and speak, and you know, maybe making me look bad. He was pretty good. So he did a wonderful job, though. And it, you know, was a really, it was a big update. I haven't presented to the community for a little while, and I was surprised that there wasn't very many questions on things like 3-stream or some of the other issues we've worked through. All of it had centered around water, what's happening with water. It's a big issue in all of our areas, specifically the dam, how that's being funded, progress with the water filtration, the slope stability bylaw, and how that will or won't move forward. So those are some things that, you know, people are certainly looking for answers for on. They've been pretty patient in the community, and I think answers on some of those things are going to be coming sooner than later. So those are some important things. Because of how those questions went, our next community conversation meeting is going to be on November 12th. Todd Arrington, who's our water manager, has already agreed to come out and answer the questions that he's able to answer. Director Martman said that he would possibly also willing to join. Just got word of that a few minutes ago, so I'll have to confirm that a little bit later. So those are some of the bigger things, but one other thing I want to touch on just around volunteers, and I'm going to try to do this without getting into any of the politics of it, but there was an event at Saltaire a couple days ago, a party I don't know much about, booked it. It seemed to be a private event, and then there was some demonstrators. To be, you know, very honest, I don't know much about either of the parties, but it was a contentious issue, and our great volunteers at the community center have been targeted and made to feel, you know, quite threatened. And I just want to remind everybody that they're volunteers. They're literally, you know, saving us hundreds of thousands of dollars in wages every year to keep our centers open. And, you know, just really want to publicly say that I support the folks there at the community center and all of our hardworking volunteers. So I'll leave it at that. Yeah, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Thank you for sharing. Director Acton.
Well, a couple things were already mentioned, the Cops for Cancer, and then the workshops that are coming up in next weekend, not this weekend, but the following weekend, the Friday and Saturday at the Shawnee Lake Community Center. So I hope there's a good turnout for that. And then there is a bit of an issue that's in Area B, but I was going to bring it up here, but I think I should talk to staff first before I assume anything. So I'll be talking to staff about that, and then maybe come forward with a director's report would be a better forum for me. Thanks.
Director Martman. Well, don't you want to hear my update?
Yeah, yours, and then I'll have a wrap-up.
Okay. I'm pretty excited because Rupert Scow, who is a Kwaka-Util carver from up north, is gifting a totem to the community. And it's going to be raised on October 15th around 10 o'clock at the Cowichan Station Area Association. And it's really a beautiful thing. The Kwatsan people, the Cowichan tribes have welcomed Rupert into the community and have blessed his work. He brought a part, he had a stroke a few years ago when he was halfway through carving a totem elsewhere, so he's now able to carve again, and he brought this beautiful totem to Cowichan Station and he carved it. And then he took it over to Sunrise Waldorf School and painted it. And so there's been a huge community involvement in helping carve and helping paint. And now it's going to be raised at the Cowichan Station Hub. So it's a really cool thing. And if you want to have a fun Sunday morning, come out and watch a totem pole being raised on October 15th, 10 o'clock. 10 to noon, but who knows how long it takes to do one of those things. You know, you pull it up by hand. Director Martman.
Thank you, and this is sort of stepping outside of Area H and more of thinking about this weekend coming up is Thanksgiving. And for each of us, we probably have great thanks to give for many people and family. But on the day today is the funeral for Constable Rick O'Brien. I think I hope he's got his name right. And as a first responder, and thinking what his family's going through and what's coming up for Thanksgiving for them, I guess I just like to put my heartfelt thoughts out there in the universe, and hope you'll share those with me. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much, everyone. That was really interesting. Mr. Corporate Secretary. A motion to adjourn. That's what we do now. I have a motion, seconded. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Have a great Thanksgiving weekend.